Welcome to the Athletic Supporters, the 2,487th podcast on the internet. But the first that asked the question, can 5 friends prove that they know anything about sports that they think they're experts in? This is how it works. We talk about sports, and when we want to change the topic, you'll hear this. Now let's meet the guys.
Hi, I'm Kevin Shea.
Kevin's written 20 hockey books, so naturally Kevin's going to lead the conversation about hockey.
Hi, I'm Kim Cook.
Kim is going to do a deep dive on baseball analytics because, well, that's what he does.
Hi, I'm Tim Burgess.
Could you tell that Tim was from England? Since he grew up in Europe, he's going to teach us all about the exotic sports, such as F1, cricket, and rugby.
Hi, I'm Ian Marchant.
Ian's a Montreal Canadiens fan, but since the Canadiens suck this year, Ian's going to enlighten us all about things soccer. And I'm Steve Waxman. I bounced a basketball against the wall of my parents' apartment when I was 10, and that bit of mischief gave birth to a lifelong passion.
Do you never do Zoom calls like in real life, Kim? Is that?
Yeah, I do, but we do ours at night, so the lighting is just entirely different.
Fair enough.
Wait a minute. This is 8 o'clock. Well, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't. All right, I'm going to start this episode so I can get to episode 9 of Ozark.
Oh, okay. We're watching it right now.
While we're doing this, right?
Oh,
yeah. Anyway. Well,
Ozark, is it good?
What?
I don't know Ozark. Is it good?
Oh my God, Ian.
Oh my God, Ian, you're so fucking far behind. It's crazy.
It's a season 4.
I've never heard of it.
Don't hold anything back, Steve, whatever you do.
It's a 4-season thing, and then it's done. And they just released the second half of the final season, and it's gripping stuff. It really is. Okay. You got to put it on the list.
But you have to start from episode 1. What?
What's it on?
Netflix. Welcome to episode 3 of the new Athletic Supporters. We're so happy to be here. I can't believe we made it this far. I think that with the 3rd episode, once it goes up onto the World Wide Web, we will be one of the top 5 percentile of podcasts in the world.
Yay! Getting it all the way to episode 3.
It the bar is so low. Thank God. Let's start with soccer, aka football, because, Ian, I feel like by always leaving it towards the end, it's a little bit of a
it's the run to the litter.
Poor cousin. So why don't you give us an update of what's happening with soccer these days?
It's an interesting time. I think the big story in the Premier League right now is Everton. Everton has had a soccer team, a football team since 1888. Between that date and today, they've been in the top division, whatever it was called at the time, the first division originally, and then the Premier League, for all but 4 years since 1888. The last time was in 1954. They are, as the season is winding down, at the risk of not staying in the first division for the first time. Because one of the interesting things about football, soccer, is that the bottom 3 teams in the league drop down to the next best league, and 3 teams from the next best league move up to the next better league. And it works all the way down. I think it goes down 11 or 12 levels, at least in the UK. So they are at risk of dropping into the second division, the championship as it's called, for the first time, like I say, since 54. There's 3 or 4 teams that are at risk, 3 or 4 games left that are all at risk of doing this. They're fighting to stay there in 18th. They've got a game in hand versus their rivals. So it's quite interesting. This week, they beat Chelsea. Chelsea is the number 2 team in the league. Now they beat them only 1-0. Last week, they lost 2-0 to the team that's sitting in the second place in the league, Liverpool. And an interesting stat from that Liverpool game to give you a sense of the difference between the second place team and the 18th place team. At the 39th minute, they posted this. 39th minute out of 90, for those that don't know, that football is played over 90 minutes, 2 45-minute halves. Liverpool who's in first place, was in first place at the time, they had taken 339 passes, of which 90% were accurate. In those same 39 minutes, Everton had taken 56 passes, of which 50% were accurate. So that shows you the difference between a team down at the bottom of the league, which is at risk of dropping down, to a team at the very top of their game that, you know, they have such movement and fluidity, keeping the ball, keeping possession, because accuracy is what it's all about when you're passing in any sport, whether it be basketball or hockey or football, soccer and football. So I just wanted to use that to illustrate the difference between a team at the top, which is, you know, tremendously successful in Liverpool, and Everton, which coincidentally are both from Liverpool, and coincidentally both have stadiums in the same park named Stanley Park, literally less than a kilometer away from each other. So, you know, we think of football stadiums or hockey arenas, they're just, you know, wildly placed around a city. In Liverpool, the two top teams play in the same park with pitches that are less than a kilometer apart.
Can I just jump in for a second? I think that
Of
for
course.
anybody that isn't necessarily following this, I believe it's on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of the show. Is it Sunderland Forever?
Sunderland Forever, yep.
Which is a great show that illustrates everything that you're talking about, because you get to watch over a course of a couple of seasons a team that tries to get to the championship league, right?
No, the Prem. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, my team. It's interesting you should talk about that, Ian. My team. I don't really follow soccer like I used to when I lived there, but my team is now Barnsley because my dad comes from Barnsley. That's where he was born and brought up, and they are the very bottom of the championship, which is the second division. And yet last year they were in the playoffs to make it to the Premiership. So they've gone from being maybe one or two goals outside the Premiership, and they are now bottom of their division. They will be in the third tier next year. So they're kind of like the Championships version of the Montreal Canadiens, actually. You know, going from the very top to the very bottom in one season.
Well played. Well played.
And goes to the outhouse.
Wow. But yes, to go back to Steve's point, yeah, that Sunderland series on Netflix is amazing. It is tremendously insightful. You don't have to be a football fan or even a sports fan to enjoy it. I can honestly say that when I was watching it here, Sharon enjoyed it with me too, just as she is enjoying the show about Formula One that Tim should talk about. If we haven't talked about it previously, I don't think we have. But yeah, so that's kind of the scoop. We're coming to the end of the season where, you know, we're going to be seeing teams drop from one division down to the next. We're going to see teams, in some situations, they get automatically promoted. Other ones, they have to go through a little playoff to get promoted. But it's a very nail-biting time for certain teams where you're right on the cusp either way of moving up and getting all that extra money you get when you're playing at the next level up to falling level down. And particularly when you fall out of the Premier League, the amount of money that you don't get from the TV monies that they make, because the Premier League is shown almost everywhere in the world for all the major markets. Where when you drop down to the Championship, they get the odd game that's shown outside of the UK and Europe.
I want to talk about F1 if you guys don't mind, but before I talk about F1, Tim, do you have a report from the Monarch migration?
I don't. I really should do, but I'm afraid I was terrible. I was supposed to be following, obviously, all of the big migration, but frankly, I just goofed off last week and I didn't do that at all.
That's fine. We'll have somebody else cover it next year.
Thank you.
Somebody much more reliable.
Yeah, good plan.
But perhaps you could answer a question that I have with regards to F1. I understand that last week there were sprint races. I don't understand.
Yes.
What are they?
Well, they are something that is dividing the F1 fandom between the likes and the dislikes. You know, we talk about society as a whole is getting more polarized all the time. Well, F1 fandom is no different when it comes to sprint races. I think they were originally not even allowed to be called races. I think they were allowed, you could only call them sprints and not sprint races, even though they clearly are a race. But it's a new thing that's coming. They did a couple, I think, last year, and they've got 6 this year, and they're thinking of getting more next year. And what it is, it's really something to try to make Saturdays more exciting, I think, and to make the whole idea of who qualifies at the head of the field, ready for the race, who qualifies there, make that piece of work to get first place, pole position in the full Grand Prix, trying to make that more interesting. And what it is really is usually what used to happen over a weekend, and what happens over a normal weekend. The teams all ship into the city that they're racing at. They set up all their garages. They build their cars or put their cars back together. And then Thursday, they do a whole lot of practice. Friday, they do a whole lot of practice. And then on Saturday, they have qualifying, which lasts an hour. And it's they've tried a bunch of different formats for it. But basically what happens is whoever goes fastest during that hour on Saturday gets to start the race at the head of the queue. Right? They're on pole position, and the second fastest is in second place, and so on down to 20th. But this new idea around sprint races or sprints or whatever we're allowed to call them is that they do the qualifying, the sort of simple qualifying on Friday, and then on Saturday they have a short race. I think it's 15 laps or 20 laps or something like that. It depends on the length of the circuit, but it's a short race. And whoever wins that race gets to be on pole position and second and third and so on and so on. So it's kind of supposedly more exciting than just regular qualifying of the cars going around and trying to get the fastest possible lap. This is about having got the fastest possible lap. Now it's a race to see who's going to start where in the real race on Sunday. So that's what a sprint is. And they had one at Imola last week. Week or two ago, the last race. Yeah. But the exciting thing coming up this coming weekend is there's a race in Miami. And I'm pretty sure, I know they've never been to this circuit before, but I'm pretty sure Formula One has never raced in Miami at all. I'm not even sure they've raced anywhere in Florida. I think they may have done way back, in the 50s or 60s, maybe back then. But definitely this is new for anything like that. All the time I've been watching, which goes back to the 80s. This is a brand new circuit built in Miami, and it's going to be, a wholly new experience. There's been a lot of build up about it, about the way the track has been made and the kind of asphalt that's down and all sorts of technical stuff that nobody really cares about. But there's the races in Miami this weekend, so we'll see.
Ian,
a couple of questions, Tim. First off, is Miami a road track or a specially designed racetrack?
It's specially built. Yeah, it's been specially built. It's sort of around the Hard Rock Cafe, I believe, and in their sort of grounds or their parking lot or whatever is their kind of theme park or something like that. It's built around there, and it's I think I'm right in saying it's an anti-clockwise circuit, which is reasonably unusual these days. Most circuits they go clockwise. Obviously there's a lot of curves all over the place, but if you go clockwise, you clearly have more right-hand turns than you have left-hand turns. Otherwise, you wouldn't get back to the beginning. So it's an anti-clockwise circuit, which is unusual.
And then another question going back to the qualifying: are they finding that on the qualifying where they're just doing laps and trying to set the fastest lap versus these sprints, which is quicker?
Quicker in terms of time.
The winner is the winner racing faster on the. When he's just out doing the laps, or when they're doing the sprint race?
You're generally quicker just doing your qualifying laps because they run them with the stickiest possible because you're going for one lap or maybe 2 laps at a maximum on a run. You have the stickiest possible tires, which means they're very soft and they don't last very long. Very low fuel in the car to keep it as light as possible. And so a flat out qualifying lap is probably the fastest you'll ever see a Formula One car Go. But what's one of the things they brought the sprints in for was to kind of bring excitement and maybe to mix up the grid a bit, maybe have different people at the front of the grid, or at least in second or third place, something like that. I guess it's kind of a good idea, I guess. You can probably tell I'm not that big a fan of them. I'm not really sure they have any particular value. And the real problem is it worked entirely against them at the last race, because qualifying itself took place in when it was raining on and off. And so, it was very difficult conditions, very slippery. And the grid was really mixed up. You had all sorts of, cars in the wrong places, the fast cars not necessarily right at the front, sort of halfway back. But because they then had a sprint on the Saturday, all those cars that were halfway back caught up during the sprint. And so when come the Grand Prix, instead of being halfway back in the grid, they were at the front where you would expect them. So it ended up being, same old, instead of something a little bit more interesting and different.
I thought that possibly the sprint races were brought in to sell more tickets, not to sound cynical.
I'm sure that's the case, Ian. I'm sure that's the case. It's to bring more people in on a Saturday, I'm sure.
Kev, well, everybody, I guess you all are hockey fans. It's now the real season is about to begin, as they say. So what do we expect? What do you expect? I'll just watch from the sidelines.
The Habs won't win the cup this year.
So the regular season is now over. And so with Seattle Kraken joining the team or the league this year, we had 32 teams in the league. 16 teams qualify for playoffs. 16 are now on the sidelines and looking on, salivating, wishing. So we've got 16 teams, which means we've got 8 games. 8 games going on. They've got 4 contests in the Western Conference and 4 in the Eastern Conference. To me, this is the most exciting round of hockey. The first round of the playoffs is the most exciting time. Inevitably, there are teams that you expect to win who fall out during their best of 7 series. Teams that play poorly or see injuries or whatever, and lose their season as a result, or lose the rest of the season as a result. Others who play over their head, punching way over their weight class to move on and move forward. So it's a really, really exciting time, and really looking forward to it. The interesting thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs is that right now you have to consider 2 things. One is that because they finished higher in the standings during the season, they've got home ice advantage. So in effect, because of that, they're looked at as the team to beat here. Well, tough to say when you're playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are 2-time Stanley Cup champions, going in looking for a third. If you had to compare the teams, this is where it gets really funny. Not funny at all, really, but if you compare positionally, goaltender, well, Jack Campbell's a very good goaltender, but Tampa Bay's netminder is arguably the best in the National Hockey League, best in the world. Defense, well, geez, Toronto's much more solid than they were a year or 2 ago, and adding Giordano certainly has helped, bringing the kids up and giving them some more ice time, maturing, et cetera, et cetera. But Tampa Bay's defense is outstanding, with Victor Hedman back there as one who is a perennial Norris Cup candidate. Forwards, a bit of a wash, I guess. Both can run and gun like crazy. They've got great goal scorers, and you think of Stamkos for the Lightning, you think of Matthews for the Leafs, and then it just goes down from there with Point on Tampa Bay and Marner and others on Toronto. So it's a bit of a wash that way. Power play, pretty much a wash. Penalty kill, same sort of thing. Coaching, that's a tough one. Keefe has done so well. Sheldon Keefe of the Toronto Maple Leafs has done very, very well, but it's hard to argue with a coach who's taken them to 2 Stanley Cup championships and has won in every league that he's ever coached and gone from there. So I would have to give the coaching to Tampa Bay. So who's the underdog? Well, in effect, even though statistically Toronto is the power team, as it were, Tampa Bay leaves the Leafs as the underdog. So it's going to be a great series one way or another. who's going to emerge from it. From all of the different series that are going on, I would have to think this is the most interesting one, and not just because we're living here, but I just have to think that the hockey world is really kind of laser focused on this one too, because there's a lot at stake right now. Can Tampa go for a third Stanley Cup championships? Can the Leafs break out of their I guess I'll call it mold of not being able to get past the first round? So it'll be an interesting time, and really, really looking forward to watching it over the next couple of weeks or so. Yeah, Kim.
What do you got?
I just wanted to say that I am at hockey peace. I've watched this season with rapt attention. It's certainly my favorite Leafs season that I can remember since literally, well, probably 93, but before that, the 60s. And, you know, if they do lose, I refuse to get sucked into the Leaf bashing that will follow in some quarters. I've just got so much pleasure out of this year watching not just Matthews and Marner, but of course Matthews and Marner, but the entire team. So many great games, so many great performances. It's going to be a hell of a series for all the reasons you just laid out, Kev. But win or lose, I've loved this season.
Well, I have to agree and think the same way. I mean, it's if they were to lose out in the first round of the playoffs, it would be really unfortunate. But you have to look at what's happened during the season. We've had team success. The team has won more games than they've ever won before in a season. They've accumulated more points than they've ever had in a season. And then we've got the individuals with both Marner and Matthews. I'm trying to think of others. Riley, I think, too, more points than they've ever had. You know, we've got Michael Bunting, a candidate for the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year and having a season beyond compare. So huge successes all the way around. The Shanna plan that was put into effect 7 years ago has come to fruition over the last couple of years. And certainly this is the time where the team is most ripe. But they face a really, really huge hill to climb right now with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But they can beat them as they have during the regular season. Tampa can beat Toronto as they have during the regular season in dominating form. So it'll be fun to watch, and may the best team win. That's all we can say. Sorry, you had something?
Yeah, sorry, just to add some balance. As a Habs fan, we're just glad it's over. Having our worst season in history, finishing in 31st place.
32nd, actually.
Yeah, sorry, 32nd. Sorry, typo on my sheet here. You know, the incredible thing is that the only thing people are talking about is Carey Price, because we don't know what's going on. Is he going to stay? There's rumors that even with that huge contract, someone's willing to pick him up. He came back late in the season, very late in the season from the surgery. Turned out his knee was swelling up in every game. There's talk that he's going to need more surgery over the summer. He's got a contract 4 more years at $10.5 million.
Think there's any chance to retire, Ian?
There's in some of the stuff I've been reading about, yeah, there is talk of that he might ask Montreal to buy out his, give him the buyout, whatever that is of his contract. Could be 10 million, could be 5, I have no idea. But yeah, he could very well, because there's a real question about this knee. Like it's, although he had the surgery and it seemed he was well enough, but in the games, every game that he played since he came back from it, it has swelled up. So there's also talk maybe more surgery. Who knows? It's totally up in the air. But the only consistent thing we know is Martin St. Louis will be behind the bench again next year, which is a good thing. All the young kids that played this year got a chance are pretty much staying, so we got that happening. Evans is not Evans, sorry. Just trying to blank the name of our backup goalie. He played reasonably well while Carey was gone, but Carey came back and played okay some games and played amazing on other ones. But you can't rely on him solely to take you to the cup. He helps, but not the only thing. Okay.
Yeah, just my thoughts. I mean, Carey Price, I think, has been amazing over a lot of years, and I don't think there's a hockey fan in the country who doesn't have respect for Carey Price. I would say that for sure. But on the Leafs, picking up on your point, Kim, I mean, I can't go back to the 60s of watching hockey. I go back to about 2000, but I will definitely say, from my point of view, this is the best Leaf team I've seen. They've had the offense with Matthews and Marler for some time. Matthews particularly, he's been scoring at this rate for 2-3 seasons now. But they always had, we were always worried about defensemen. I mean, I remember, Kevin, the number of nights we sat, up in the seats watching the game, and every time a defenseman had the puck behind the goal line, you kind of think, oh God, what's going to happen this time? And that has virtually disappeared. I think the defense core is really solid and trustworthy, and I don't have fear about it like I used to. There was a time when it was basically, if Riley had the puck, you could carry on breathing. If anybody else that had the puck, you had to wait and see what happened before you could take the next breath. That's no longer true with the defense core, I don't think. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We're back in the situation we were the other day when we were talking about baseball. Before the playoffs start, we've got every chance of winning. We could win the Stanley Cup this year, but we'll see. Maybe we won't feel that on Tuesday morning.
All right, can we move on to a little bit of basketball, because basketball is also in the playoffs, but they're moving into the second round. There's just a couple things that I wanted to say, and actually one of them is actually related to what you guys are talking about with regards to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and that's the Toronto Raptors. Not just because of ownership, but I think that Kim, the result is what I think that I've been talking about for months.
Acknowledged. I thought a lot about that since they sad demise.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's okay, because on one hand, the team overachieved. On the other hand, the team did exactly what the team was built right now to do. One of the things about the Toronto Raptors that I think that everybody that is a basketball fan, not just a Toronto Raptors fan, but I think anybody that's a real basketball fan that watches the Raptors really admires, is the team culture. That these guys really seem like they're all on the same page, that they all support each other regardless of anything that happens. There's never any bad news that really comes out of the locker room. And that's actually a question that I wanted to ask about the Toronto Maple Leafs, because I don't recall, apart from the Edmonton Oilers back in the 80s, maybe the Islanders a little bit before that, but certainly the Oilers are the only team that I can think of that I remember seeing a real culture where everybody on that team were supporting each other. And I'm just wondering, because I don't watch hockey now, and I'm wondering, do the Leafs have the same kind of culture, or even close to a similar kind of culture that a team like the Raptors have?
Yeah, if I can answer, yeah, they absolutely do. It's they're all in it together. They socialize together. You have to remember that a lot of the team came up together. So the core, as it were, came up together as kids. The Matthews and Marner came the same season. Nylander came, I think it was the season after that. Riley's the old man on the team, and he's all of 27 or 28. He's not the oldest person on the team, but of that core group. But they all are in it together, and the MLSE has really nurtured that culture as well, making sure that they come to the rink and they're well taken care of with meals and physio and weight rooms and places to watch television and play video games and stuff too. So they really, really are a strong team together, and they're carefully protected too. Fans can't get near them. They're protected from social media. You know very little about what's going on. If there's ever talk about a trade, it's always quite surprising usually that it comes at the last minute and blows us away. The Giordano example being one. So they really are an insular but very protected and very close-knit group of players. It's really wonderful to watch, actually.
Kimmer?
Steve, getting back to basketball, 2 questions for you. With regard to the Raptors, and other than the continuing maturation of the young players, what do they need to add for next year? Is it a Marc Gasol type, big, strong tall, tough guard or something else?
If they only added one player, that's what they would need.
Right.
And then it would, if they only added one, that's what they would need. What they do need is they need consistent shooting outside of Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. It's going to be interesting to see the kind of work that Precious Achiuwa and Scotty Barnes do over the summer. I think I'm 100% confident that Scotty's going to be a million times better. And he starts at a really great, level. But I mean, because as I said last episode, he's going to be a superstar. Precious Achiuwa really showed us so much over the course of the last 2 months since the All-Star break, and if he can develop into a 30% 3-point shooter, he's gonna be devastating to other teams. So that'll be really interesting. But they need somebody that can stand, can be in the post. Someone who's quick though too. Gasol was big, but he wasn't, and he was crafty. And getting someone like Gasol is tough because those players don't exist anymore. Now it's, Joel Embiid is a little bit of a freak of nature, as is Giannis. These guys are big and they're fast. And, if you can find someone like that, I mean, if the Raptors found someone like that, forget it. I mean, all bets are off and they're going to make the Eastern Conference Finals next year. So we'll see.
Thank you. My second question is, do you have a pick to win it all?
I think that in the end, it's going to be Milwaukee and Phoenix again, like last year. And I think it'll be a 7-game series. Last year was 5. I think it'll be a 7-game series.
Okay. Thanks, Steve.
Steve, you're talking about, what's missing, and great question came on that. But what I've been thinking about with how people have been talking about the Raptors, and how they are a great team and they have a great team spirit and all of that, which is good. And I don't follow enough of the NBA to know about how it works across all teams. But do you need to import someone like Kawhi Leonard to be a winning team? Do you have to have like one big superstar who is going to come into the team, play for the team, and make the team a championship winning team? Falling back into hockey there for a second. A championship winning team. Do you have to have like that one guy, like a Steph Curry or a Joel Embiid, or that kind of a player, or can you be successful in the NBA by having a group of good players, not one of which is necessarily kind of in the top 5 in the league?
The only team that's ever been that was the Detroit Pistons back in the early 2000s. But you have to have a player that can control the tempo of the game, can control the speed of the game, can make a shot when you need it. I mean, you take Kawhi Leonard off of the Toronto Raptors in 2019, they're still a solid team. And they may even make it to the Eastern Finals, maybe. But they would not have made it into the finals, and they wouldn't have won.
And so in that case, what we're saying is that the Raptors have to import somebody because we don't have someone, Fred VanVleet and maybe Siakam. They're not going to be those kind of players. Is that true? I'm not.
No, that is true. But over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, Scotty Barnes could be that player.
Could be.
Oh, okay.
So, and you know what? We're all sports fans and we all want our teams to win, whether they're the Raptors, the Leafs, or the Canadians. We want our teams to win. But I think we're all smart enough and realistic enough. And the Blue Jays, and realistic enough to know that it takes time. And I think that at the end of the day, sports is entertainment. And as you guys have said about the Leafs this year, you were entertained, and that's enough. You want them to win. You want them to win it all. but you got your money's worth of entertainment, and that's the important thing. And I think that that's the thing that people seem to forget a lot of times when we put our heart and soul into these teams and we start referring to these professional athletes as we.
Yeah.
We forget that it's just reality TV. It's just entertainment. And our responsibility to these teams are the hats and shirts that we buy and the tickets for the tickets for the big show, but we have no say.
I was just going to address the cost of seats, it just because I'm a little off the discussion right now, but so times have certainly changed, and MLSE is this monolith, and it certainly has made a great deal of money over the last little while. So the seats that I have are up high. They're the highest level. They're called purples, and they're good vantage point. I love them very, very much, but they're also the least expensive of all the tickets that are there. So just as an example, for the first round of the playoffs, the tickets are $150 each for each of the games that the Leafs will play. If they make it to the second round, the seats become $250 per seat. If we make it to the conference final, they're $350 per seat. And if we should go all the way to the Stanley Cup final, please, they're $550 each to watch the game from up high. So you can only imagine what the seats in the platinum and the golds are, which are the primo seats at that point. But it just gives you an idea of the amount of revenue that teams make, specifically Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment involved in their hockey team and their fans.
Is that $550 per seat per game?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So $1,100.
Yeah.
For you and your guests per game. So if they go to 7 games, 7,000.
Well, no, they don't.
That'd only be 4.
The most they could play is 4.
4 games. Sorry, 4.
4,000.
Whatever.
It's still plenty of money.
So I had to renew the season tickets for the 2022-23 season about a month ago. And it came to, and I can't remember off the top of my head, it seems to me it was about $7,000. A lot of money, but that's also for 42 games. The playoffs alone this year, they billed me $10,000 the next week, for more than 10,000 actually, to go to the games. Now, that if they don't play the games, it goes towards next season's money, or I can get a refund. But just for the 2 months of hockey, maybe even far less than that, I had to pay more than I pay for the entire season.
And that's why you can't afford to retire. Kim, enlighten us to the world's slowest sport. I think that Kevin's point that they should knock it down to 7 innings is fantastic. But we'll talk about that some other time.
I would just say probably second slowest sport.
To cricket.
Cricket probably takes the biscuit there, but go on, Kim.
Yeah.
I just have to bite my tongue. That's all I can say. Well, let me give you the good news and bad news on the Blue Jays front. The good news first, gentlemen. Today, Bo Bichette has had a horrible start to the season, both offensively and defensively. It's been painful to watch him. But today, he hit a dramatic 2-run homer to give the Jays the lead, and made a spectacular defensive play after having made an egregious error. But the point is, the Jays took a 3-2 victory from Houston, following up on a 2-1 victory. So 2 out of 3 from a very tough team. And an interesting thing is happening. It's early in the season still, but the New York Yankees and the Jays are starting to open up some distance between Boston and Tampa, who ostensibly should have been hanging right tough with them. The Yankees have won 9 in a row and are red hot right now. They're leading the East by about a game and a half. Toronto's hanging right there with them, just a little bit behind. And that is in spite of their various pitching and injury issues. On the injury front, Teoscar Hernandez nearly back. Hyun-Jin Ryu nearly back. Danny Jansen nearly back. Now the bad news. Well, let's back into the bad news with the good news. 3/5 of the starting rotation is pitching lights out. Alec Manoah, Gaussman, today's starter, who has not walked a batter yet this year. That's remarkable. And Berrios has gotten his act together. Everything great there. But Ryu, obviously hurt, wasn't pitching well before that. And the other big free agent signing, Yusei Kikuchi, has been a bit of a train wreck.
And Yusei Kakachi.
They've got some issues.
I'll be here all week if you want.
They've got some issues to sort out there, but generally things are going well in Jays land, and it's still the greatest, most poetic game ever.
All right, listen, guys. I think that this is probably a good time. Oh, hang on a second. I was going to wrap it up, but I see that perhaps there's just a little bit more. No. Okay, we'll do it later. I'm going to wrap it up because my wife, who is a spectacular baker, has made strawberry squares, and those are waiting for me downstairs. Well, that's it for episode 3. The strawberry squares were delicious, and Ozark was gripping. How's that sticker book coming along? If you made it this far, give yourself a blueberry. If you're becoming a fan of the New Athletic Supporters, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and share episodes with your friends. If you're not enjoying the podcast, stick it out because we can only get better. And now you're an athletic supporter too.